Hello and welcome to Premier League predictions video. Now, this intro I've done like 80 times. I've had problems with technical equipment. We were just going to say, welcome to the video. If you have came in from Twitter, by the way, thank you. I appreciate it. If you're just here, it's a new video, whatever. I just say, hey, I'm going to try to be more consistent with my upload schedule. If you look at my previous videos, they have not really been consistent. I've done like maybe 4 videos, 2 videos, 3 videos, and then I've just gone away for like 2 months, and then I've come back. I don't really want to do it like that, but you know, sometimes I just get bored of it. Regardless, I'm really quite passionate about doing this sort of continuously, so hopefully I stick to that. Now, I thought, considering the season was about to start, what better than to try to do a Premier League predictions video, which obviously might not go too well, but we can hope so. I think if it doesn't go well, I will take responsibility because it's my predictions. You know, it's not your predictions. So if you get annoyed about these, please don't be too upset, because it will really hurt my feelings. Now we'll go from 20th, which might be one that hurts feelings. It's Leicester City. Look, I do not like this club. I do not like this club, I'll be honest. I really don't like Leicester City. I don't like what they stand for. Well, I don't mind what they stand for, actually. I just don't like their fans. They have a sort of obnoxious vibe about them because they won the league. They're apparently deserving to be in the Premier League, and Premier League great. So like top 6 kind of team. I know it's not all of them, and I know generalizing is not essentially a great idea, but I never got a good vibe from their fans. I met a couple of their fans, and they've all been very similar to that. Regardless, in terms of a pure club, they're fucked. I mean, FFP, they're apparently going to give them one of the biggest points deduction in Premier League history. Their transfer business has been kind of shit, apart from like Fatu, which I think is a good signing. I don't like the rest of it. I think they're in trouble. I really do. I think their squad is good enough to the point where it's a Premier League squad. If the point deduction wasn't a factor, I would probably have them sneaking survival and relegating my 17th place team. But the point deduction will matter, and it will fuck up the dressing room. They've lost Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, which I think is a massive loss. And Pedersen obviously got links, but I don't think he's gone anywhere. And they lost their literal manager, Maresca. Even though I don't think he's a good manager, I still think losing him necessarily is a bad idea. It's not necessarily their fault because they had not much choice in it, really, but they lost him. And they've lost their manager who promoted them last year, and now they've had to go appoint Steve Cooper, who I think is actually a good manager. And I think you will see Leicester City play okay, but it won't be enough. I think you'll maybe get 30 points on the board. I think this team will be a bit more tough. But from what I'm hearing, it's going to be like 20-ish points deducted, so you'd be scoring 50 points, which would be enough comfortably to survive. But you're only going to get 30, and that's not enough to survive, to say the least. I think this season's going to be way more tough than last season, where it was 27 points. But if you got like 30 points, you would have probably survived okay. I think okay-ish. I think everyone who got relegated was in 27, 26, 25. Obviously, Sheffield United were in the 10s. Anyway, I don't think it'll be like that, but I still think Leicester City will finish bottom. Yeah, moving on, you probably already saw it because for some reason it glitched, but Nottingham Forest have finishing 19th, and I have a few reasons for this. I don't like Nuno Espirito Santo, and that's coming from I'm obviously a Spurs fan, but I don't think he's a good manager. I really don't. I think Nottingham Forest last year needed to go and sign a relegation manager to sort of save them. And don't get me wrong, they survived. Like, congratulations, you survived with that kind of squad, which is fucking ridiculous. You survived with a brilliant squad. That's a very impressive achievement. To be fair, they did have a points deduction, but it was like 2 points. No one really cares. I just think that Nuno Espirito is an awful manager, and I also think there's a looming points deduction that could happen to them. I think, considering how volatile the sort of points deductions have been, and how aggressive they have been, I think Forest will probably, they may be in contention to get another one. And I think, considering, as I said, I think the points are going to be actually quite high at the bottom end of the table. I'm going to say that they're going to get maybe about 33, 34 points. And I think they will be fine enough with that. But considering that amount of squad depth, I mean, you've got players like Gibbs White, who I think is easily a top 8 player. You've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, who is, obviously been hyped up for a long time. It wasn't necessarily getting good chances at Chelsea, and he's shown in the second half of last season why he is a very high class talent. Obviously, you've got Anthony Elanga as well, who's probably the least good out of the three and still a very good player. I think all three will have a good year. What I worry about Forest is their defense and goal. In goal, really. Carlos Miguel is a weird transfer. If you look into him, he's not really what you would call a modern goalkeeper. He's very much like a kick it, lump it long, and it does work for Nuno Espirito Santo ball. But he's also a monster ball. He's like over 200 centimeters, which is crazy. Because obviously I'm British, I don't necessarily use feet, but I think that's over like 6'5", 6'6", which is might even be higher than that, maybe 6'7", 6'8", which is crazy. The boy's a towel, and respect is really cool. I like that. I like the signing as an idea, but he's played like 13 league games in Brazil his whole goddamn career, and he's no like 20-year-old. He's 24. I don't know, man. I don't see it being too successful. But Forest, if you do well, I have no problems against you. In fact, I like you as a club. I think the history of your club is great, and I hope you sack Nuno Espirito Santo pretty much as soon as possible and get a good manager in that will keep you up. Moving on. 18th, I have Ipswich Town, and I didn't want to do this. I don't like putting Ipswich Town as a relegation candidate because it's a really nice story. Coming up from League One promoted, coming up from Championship promoted in the same 2 years is very impressive. It really is, and that should not be taken away from this. Finishing 18th in the Premier League from that is not necessarily a bad thing. But their squad comprises mostly of League One talent, and while that League One talent, sure, is definitely punched above its weight in the Championship, God yes, it still is League One talent based on that. It could be argued they're more Championship talent, but technically they are still from League One, and their signings have been a bit weird. I think Jacob Greaves is a really, really good transfer. I'm not so sure on Murray Hutchinson. I think, don't get me wrong, Chelsea's youth academy is brilliant, but I don't know if he's worth that £35 million they've apparently spent on him. I don't know. I don't think Liam Delap's a good transfer. I think there's a lot of variables, and maybe Ipswich could survive, but I don't think so personally. I think it's gonna come down to the wire with my 17th place team, but I think they just don't have that clinicality. I don't see who's going to score the goals, and unfortunately that will be their downfall. I think they have arguably less squad depth up front in terms of purely pure goal scorers than Forest or Leicester, and even those guys don't really have great squad depth up front. But anyway, Ipswich I think will be relegated at 18th, unfortunately, and again I'm sorry to say it. Moving on, 17th I have Southampton. Now you probably could have guessed that, considering the relegated teams really aren't going to be any higher than 16th, but look, I have a few reasons for this. One, I think Southampton's been overhated this sort of pre-season. I don't believe that their squad is that bad. I think their issue is up front, but if you look at their pure squad on paper, on paper first 11, you've got Bazunu in there, who I know a lot of people like. His first season Premier League wasn't good. Totally fair, but he was 21. At that age, you really shouldn't be a Premier League goalkeeper. Same with James Trafford last year. It was always going to happen. At that age, you just don't have the mental responsibility. And the same sort of thing happened with William Meslier, for instance. He was 22 when Leeds went down. It's just because of lack of experience. And I don't necessarily think that Bazunu is like this world-class goalkeeper, but he's always had hype. He's always, had that sort of Premier League hype, and I think Bazunu will be fine because he's had 2 years now. He had 1 year in the Premier League, which was disastrous, and hopefully didn't knock down his confidence too much. But he had a great year for Southampton in the Championship, and I think he's going to be okay. And I think he will be competent enough when called for goalkeeping duties, and I think that's all that really matters. He doesn't necessarily have to get like 20 clean sheets, but just be competent enough and he will be fine. I think that will be the case. However, I'm talking about more of the overall squad itself. I think their centre back options are interesting. I think Taylor Harwood-Bellis is a really good centre back. He's going to show why, and again another Man City like academy prospect, which again just shows you how fucking good Man City's academy is. I think the midfield's interesting. Flynn Downs is an interesting player they brought in. Be interesting to see how he does. And then the main area of concern for Southampton is their goal scoring threat, really. Adam Armstrong's a weird character because obviously he's a brilliant championship level striker, but in the Premier League he has had 2 seasons now and he has not cut it once. He scored 2 goals in his first Premier League season for Southampton and then 2 the following year. That is not acceptable for a Premier League striker. That is not acceptable for any team that has ever played in the Premier League, ever, period. For a starting striker, not acceptable at all. And it would be maybe a bit better if he scored a lot of assists, but he didn't, so it doesn't matter. Regardless, I think that's going to be Southampton's downfall, and that is why you can't place them higher than 16th for me. But I just think that they have a better squad overall, and they have a good manager than Ipswich and Leicester. Now, the only reason Nottingham Forest is so low is because, as I said, I've given my reasons, but Nuno Espirito Santo's an awful manager. I think Forest are going to stick with him longer than they should. Now, I think Russell Martin's a good manager, and I think he has the club in mind, and I think he will make good decisions, hopefully. But I always like Southampton as a club. I probably shouldn't, but considering I have like a few friends who are Portsmouth fans, but regardless, yeah. Anyway, 16th. This one might be one I get a little bit of flag for, but it is Everton. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I think it's their final season at Goodison Park. I just think that they have some weird like code in them, which is just completely makes it impossible for them to ever get relegated. And you can't tell me it's not true. I mean, last year everyone had them nailed on to get relegated. I think apart from Everton fans, maybe the odd, slightly weird at the time pundit, most people had them to get relegated because it just felt like that was going to happen. I mean, the previous season they finished, 17th? It felt like it was going to happen, and it didn't. And they finished, 16th? Which is pretty good, and without the points deductions, I think they would have been like mid-table, like high-end mid-table, which is very impressive. And I think this year they're going to continue. I think Sean Dyche is the right manager for the job right now. Maybe eventually they'll look to try to get a new manager, but I think as long as they're under this transfer embargo where they can't, well, not under an embargo, but when they're under this transfer sort of like situation, not being really able to sign many players and always being in a financial sort of shitstorm, I think you need to have a manager like that, and you need to play football like that if you want to stay in the Premier League. It's the truth. You either sign players, the right players, and you build a slow project with the right manager who plays the right sort of amount of balanced football. But if you can't sign players, you have to play the defensive work, and that's what people forget about Sean Dyche. That's what people forget about Everton situation right now. And I think they will be fine. I think Jack Harrison, you're going to see in particular, really stand out this year. I think he was pretty good last year, but I think this year he's really going to show. I think he's a brilliant winger for Everton. Perfect sort of Sean Dyche winger, and he's going to show up this year. Moving on to 15th. Now this one I know will piss off someone, and I'm sorry to like the 10 Brighton fans I've ever met, but oh shit. Okay, I did a previous version of this where I had Brighton 15th, and then I remembered that, like, when I was doing this one, because I wanted to change it up a bit. But I remember them being 15th, but I forgot I changed it up, so apologies. Brighton are not in 15th, but anyway, Fulham is. This one might not be too controversial then, actually, but Fulham 15th, pretty simple really. They are a mid-table side. I like Fulham as a club. They're a cool London club. I wish them all the best this year, but truth be told, they're not going to do much. They will be comfortably mid-table. They won't really ever feel the need to be pulled into a relegation fight. They'll get 40, 45 points, and they'll be happy with that, and they will settle for that. And I think the main issue, they've lost Polina. You can't really predict them higher than 15th really because of that. They haven't particularly replaced him more. I was seeing links to Andre, which I think would have been a great signing. If you pay attention to Brazilian football, which I'm not going to claim I do much of, but I have looked into it a bit, specifically just because of Andre and a couple of other talent there. He is very, very good, and I think he would have suited Fulham very well. I don't know, he's not left there. Palmeiras, I think it is. The Fluminense? It's Fluminense, sorry. I think it's Fluminense. So maybe they'll go back in for him. I don't know. I don't think it even went in for him. But I think just with links. But regardless, it's not about Andre. Fulham as a club will finish 15th. They will be fine with that. They will be okay. Marcus Silva's a good manager. Maybe they can keep him for longer, but I don't know. I think Marcus Silva's eventually going to tire. I was really impressed he didn't go to Saudi Arabia. Actually, I thought that was really, really I respected him much more. I respect Fulham more as a club for a number of reasons, but that made me respect Marcus Silva a lot more as a manager, and I think he's the right man for Fulham right now. I think that will show. I think one more thing, Emile Smith Rowe, as a Spurs fan, don't like Arsenal, but he's a really good player. Maybe not really good to stretch. He's a good player, and he's a good player for Fulham sort of level, and he will really, really shine this year. Moving on, 14th, Brighton. Sorry, so this is where I put him up 1. This one will annoy Brighton fans. I know it's on 15, but it will annoy like the 10 of them that exist. That they're a slightly bigger club than Bournemouth, but not by much. Regardless, Brighton are an okay club. I don't hate them. I don't like them. I don't dislike them. They're okay, but they will fall off this year because there is a level of ambition and being silly. And they have crossed that line this season. I think they've managed to work through not crossing it for a very long while now. I think they've done it really well, but they've crossed it. The new manager is Fabian Herzler. If you don't know, he's a Texas-born. Texas. No offense to Texas, by the way. But I'm just saying, Texas-born German manager who is, I think, 31. And when you've got, I know it's a young squad, but you still have like seasoned professionals in there, like James Milner. Welbeck is 33 now. I would say Pascal Gross, but I think he's leaving. I mean, you got players who are very close age to him as well, like Solly March. I think it's a weird one. I don't think it's going to work. I think I'm not necessarily saying he's not a good potential Lecce manager. I'm sure he's got something about him. He was very good at St. Pauli last season. He was a very good manager for them, and it's obviously a loss for St. Pauli. But I think he should have stayed at St. Pauli because I think he should have shown that he deserves to be linked with these clubs. And I think he should have developed more at a club that would have maybe taken him and would have sort of backed him more than Brighton will, because eventually Brighton will sack him. I know they didn't necessarily do that. I forget the name of I really shouldn't, but he's a scumbag. I'm not going to talk about that scumbag again because I don't like. He's gone to Marseille, which is a scumbag club. I'm sure their fans are good, but as a club, fuck Marseille now. Fuck them, awful club. But anyway, Brighton will finish 14th, and I think Fabian Herzl will be sacked by, I'm going to say January, but it could be even December. Bournemouth, 13th. I think Bournemouth a really interesting one. They're very sort of variable. I think they could finish anywhere between 13th and about 8th. I think they could even make it like a Conference League push, but I just don't think they have the squad that's right for a European push. I think their base squad is actually quite good. I think Neto still is a good goalkeeper, even if he's 34 now. I think their fullback partnership is interesting. Kirk is obviously still a very good left back, and at right back, Max Aarons didn't have the greatest year last year, but he's still an okay right back for me. Although, I mean, I think one more bad year, and I think people are going to have to admit Max Aarons might not be quite the same player. He was getting hyped up to be at Norwich. I mean, he got fucking links to, I think Barcelona bid for him, for fuck's sake. Barcelona, one of the biggest clubs of all time, bid for a guy from Norwich. It's kind of crazy. Not from Norwich, I don't know if it was born in Norwich actually, but playing for Norwich. But the squad, as I say, is on paper, it's good. And the centre back Sabani, Argentinian left-footed guy, who's pretty good. The midfield's interesting. I think Alex Scott, you're going to see have a really good year. Injuries hampered him last year, but he's going to be good this year. Trust me on that. And up front, you have Enes Unal, which will be an interesting one. Enes Unal is the real one. I'm sort of. I think he's going to flop. I don't think he's going to necessarily excite the Bournemouth fans because he's not going to score goals. He was a bit of a goal threat at Getafe for like 3 years, and then he got a fucking awful injury that ruled him out for like a year or close to that. That mentally affects players, and it clearly has affected Unal because for the past 2 seasons, he has not played well. Getafe, don't know about them, but they didn't play him. And he went on to Bournemouth in January, and he scored like 2 goals. Which isn't awful, but it's not good either. And if you're relying on that as a striker, considering how ambitious Bournemouth are being as a club, I don't like it. I have a feeling they will sign a new striker. I think, considering how good their scouting punt's been, I think they'll sign the right player. I think Evan Nilsson was getting linked, which would be a really good signing. Price point would be an issue. I think they want 60 million, but if they could use that Dominic Solanke money we've given them, then maybe. If they do that, I think that'd be a good transfer. He's a very good player. Now, Bournemouth 13th because I think they're going to unfortunately have issues goal scoring. Even if they get Evan Nilsson, it may take time for him to adjust because honestly, he's still a good striker, but it might take time for him to adjust. But 13th for Bournemouth for me. 12th West Ham. This comes with a little bit of bias, but mostly just a general feeling. I think the issue with West Ham, a bit bluntly, is their squad isn't going to click. You can't sign that many players for the money you have spent, being the club that you are, which isn't, first of all, isn't in Europe, have not really ever been a historically relevant club, not particularly, at least. Okay, maybe at some point, but not now, and not been for a while. I think their ambition is commendable, but I just don't think it's going to work. I think they've signed too many players. I think FFP will come backstab them at some point. Surely they're aware of that. They haven't made that many. I mean, to be fair, they did sell Declan Rice, but even then, at this point, they've crossed that by a country mile. I think maybe it's a bit of jealousy because I think their signings are actually really good. But I just don't think it's going to click. I'll be honest. I don't think it's going to click. I mean, half their fucking first 11 is not going to be a new signing. I think it's too much. And I think you'll see it like Chelsea had, where they've signed too many players, but it's not going to be as bad. It's not going to be as detrimental because Chelsea signed a lot of youth. I think West Ham will be 12. They'll get maybe 48, 49 points. And that should be fine. They shouldn't fuss with that. That should be alright. Wolves, I put 11th. Now, I have my reasons for this, but first I want to state the Irish guy is wrong. Gary O'Neill's a good manager. I don't understand how. I don't think he's like a world-class potential ability manager. He's going to be managing Real Madrid or City, whatever. He's not going to be. But I think he's a competent enough manager. He is clearly someone who understands what Wolves need to be as a club. Their financial restraints are really quite telling. But I think because they've just sold Pedro Neto to Chelsea, I think they will end up signing new players. I think they'll sign one player to replace Pedro Neto. I think they will hopefully get it right. I think it's going to be a bit difficult considering the amount of names that are on sort of in the world, and you've got to limit it to Spanish and Portuguese players. So we'll see. But as a pure squad, I think they have a very decent squad. Obviously, they've also lost Max Kilman, which is a big loss. It really is. They've lost their captain, which is Max Kilman. Whenever a squad loses a captain, it never goes terribly well, especially when they're an established captain for a couple of years now. But I think they have enough about them to sort of steer clear of trouble. And I think other teams are going to have massive issues this year, and I think they're going to capitalise on that. I think we're going to see a really, really good year from Cunha. He had a really good year last year. I think it was 20 plus goals and assists in the league, which is very, very good. But he's going to have a better year. I think he's going to be arguing for the top assister. I think he's going to be arguing for that. And he's going to score for me 18 league goals. He's going to get 12 assists, which is a 30 goal and assist season, which I know is kind of crazy to suggest. But trust me, it's going to happen. He is a very, very good player. I mean, you look at his stats last year, they were not far off a 30 goal and assist season. They were not that far off it. They'll be higher than you think unless you know Mateus Cunha. And I think he's going to be really good. I think you're also going to see João Gomes, players like that, really, really start to, more than they did last year, really break out. And I think Gary Neville is the right manager for Wolves. And I think they will be good. So hopefully this turns out correct. Now, 10th will probably be the one that'll get me the most trouble. I've done Brentford. Now, for a number of reasons, I know a few Brentford fans, mainly one, but a few that I quite like. And I've looked into Brentford's transfers more than probably any other club apart from Spurs on this list. I've looked into their club a lot more this sort of pre-season, and I think they have a really interesting situation, because for me they are a variable that could finish from 10th to 18th. And the reason why I have them so high is two reasons, really. One, because I think Tony is going to be a model professional. I think it's been interesting to see he hasn't really pushed for a move away this year, because I think he would have left before Ayo Thiago had that injury if he had pushed for a move, because obviously he was never going to move after that injury. But if he had pushed one before and gotten a move before, I think he would have been able to. I think Brentford would have probably settled for 40 million earlier, and who knows, maybe we would have signed him instead of Solanke. I don't know. Regardless, I think he is going to show a level of professional ability that is more than we usually see from him. I think out of respect, I think he will do that to the fans mainly. I think he is not going to say rivaling for the Golden Boot, because I think that's a bit insane. He's not going to be that good, but I think he will be I'm going to go 17 goals and maybe like 2-3 assists. Yeah, 20 goals and assists, which I think is a pretty good year. I think in that 22-23 season he scored 20 goals, which is a very, very good season. It's third in the Golden Boot race. But I think, aside from Ivan Toney for a second, I think before Kajust and Carvalho had sort of been confirmed to come in, I would have put them much lower. But I think, considering they've sort of recently just sparked an interest in players, I'm going to make it... This is partially a prediction of itself, because I think they're going to finish here because of the fact I think they are going to sign 2 more players. I think they're going to sign a defensively oriented player, like an actual defender, who will play as a centre-back, and they will sign a wing-back, hopefully, because they need to. Like, they honestly, for me, Brentford should go and try to get Kadioglu or something from, unless he's gone to Dortmund now, but I don't think he has yet. I think I would have heard of that. Kadioglu is a brilliant player. But anyway, I will probably do a separate video on who each club should sign, so I'm not getting into that now. Regardless, Brentford, I think, will be fine this year. I think they're going to have a really good year, in fact. I think they have a very underrated squad. Provided injuries don't take a hit on them, which I'm going to say they're going to get lucky, they will have a good year. Mark my words. Alright, anyway, I will look like an absolute mug if this doesn't work and they finish like 16th, but I would rather take that small chance of looking pretty smart. I'm just saying. Anyway, 9th is Crystal Palace. Now, I wanted to put Crystal Palace higher than this. I wanted to challenge them for Europe. I wanted to put them 7th, but the other part of me was saying they could finish 14th, or like 15th, whatever, mid-table. And I think I had to settle for a 9th in myself. And that's not necessarily against Palace. I think they have a good squad on paper. They have probably a better squad on paper than the rest of the clubs mentioned previously. I just think the issue is going to be they've lost Elise. They've replaced him with Malang Sarr. Now, Malang Sarr is a name I didn't really think we were ever going to hear getting linked to a club that's anywhere near a Palace level club. I wouldn't have been surprised if like an Ipswich, maybe not Ipswich, but a Leicester or something would have gone in for him. But I didn't think he was ever going to be mentioned to a team that I would also predict to finish 9th, or a team that finished 10th last year, finished as well as they did. but it has, and obviously he's been a long-term transfer link for Palace, and they finally got him, so congratulations. But I don't think it's going to be worth it. I don't think he's going to do terribly well. I think he was a bit overrated at Watford. I don't think he's going to be awful, but you've replaced a very sort of multi-dimensional sort of player with Elise, and you replaced him with Malang Sarr, who's a very one-dimensional winger. I don't think it's going to work. And this is assuming they don't let Eze go, which I'm going to guess they're not going to. I want him to come here, but I don't think we're going to get him. I think they're going to finish ninth. One thing I would say though, Kamada is a great deal. Kamada is a really good deal, and he will cook this year. He'll get 15 plus goals and assists, really, for being at a minimum. In the league, in all competitions, probably get higher. But I just worry about that. I really do. I think one thing I would say though, what's the name of the bloody? Forget the name again, but the Moroccan left-footed centre back they brought in from Barcelona is a brilliant signing. I will go into more detail of that. But I want to do like a signing one signing every team should make, and then every team's best signing. But we'll get into that later. Because honestly, Palace have two really good ones. So I don't know which one to go for. But 8th is going to be Chelsea. Partially a little bit like happy that this might happen, but I don't think this is that ridiculous. To be truthful, I think in a previous draft put them to finish like 13th, which as much as I would love, I don't see it happening. But what I do see is Enzo Maresca getting sacked as soon as arguably 12 games in. I could see it. Maybe he'll last a bit longer than that, but I don't think it's going to work. He's never, I don't know, I think it's basically, there's this illusion that everything that Pep Guardiola has ever touched has turned into something brilliant in a footballing sense. And while I think that definitely is true in some regards, based on more of like training and overall sort of footballing style that's imprinted on youth players and coaching staff, Enzo Maresca has definitely not got that, because he essentially is Pep Guardiola if he essentially didn't know what he was doing and played football with a squad that cannot play that kind of football, with a squad that is fragmented, with a squad that is continuously growing, with more and more players who are going to be linked to fucking Saudi Arabia or Genk or some shit in 3 years when they inevitably flop or don't play enough games. It's all going wrong for Chelsea, and I think they're going to have a fucking shit year. I really do. I don't think it's going to turn around like it did last season. I think it's going to be awful throughout, but it won't be to the point where they're 12th. I think they're going to get maybe 50, 55 points. That will be it. It really will, and it won't be a good year. But that's what's going to happen. I promise you, Chelsea will be shit this year. Villa 7th. Natural, I think. Many people are saying Villa could finish lower this year. Some people are saying they're going to do Champions League back to back. It won't happen. Look, they're going to finish 7th, and they will be fine. It's not a terrible position to be in. It's not awful, but it's the natural progression of things. You saw what happened to Newcastle, who had arguably had a better squad in that 23-24 season. Last season, obviously. When did they finish? They finished, what was it? 8th or 9th? So I'm being generous putting Aston Villa finish 7th. And the same thing that happened to Newcastle, by the way. They'll get knocked out in the group stage. And to be fair, Newcastle had an injury crisis as well, but I don't necessarily see happening to Villa. But that's the one variable that will be ever changing, unfortunately. This one very inconsistent. Because some teams are just going to get hit harder than others with injury, and it's hard to predict that, to say the least. So, but Villa will finish 7th. They will have a good campaign, but they will be slowed down by Champions League football and a lack of squad depth. I would still argue they have. Now, moving on. 6th, Manchester United. Now, this one has been changing a lot with the 5th choice option, but I have decided to go with Man United 6th. Main reason being, I think Erik ten Hag has lost the dressing room. Now, call me crazy. I'm sure that FA Cup win excited them all. But I think what we will see, very obviously, will be two sort of faces, two sort of factions, if you will, of the dressing room. like it did seem like that was coming to it with the Jaden Sancho situation, with some of the dressing room apparently just being very angry he's gone. I think there'll be two sides. There'll be one side that maybe won't be too happy to see him back, even after he's apologised. There'll be one side that will be happy to see him back. I think you've got to add that with the fact that they have signed Lenny Yoro, who's a good player for sure, very good young talent. I think Zerke is a risk. I don't think he's going to be a success. I think he is overrated. I used to think he was actually pretty good, but I think you have to look into him as a player more. He scored 13 league goals last year. He scored 3 more than Rasmus Højlund. I mean, and Rasmus Højlund isn't very good, is he? Let's be honest. He's not going to be much better than Rasmus Højlund. He'd be a little bit better. He's a bit more progressive with his passing, but who cares? I think Rashford's going to... If he... Honestly, let me say this now. If Rashford has like another good year... not another good year. If he has a good season this year, he has to be the most inconsistent fucking player on the planet. Because this will be, 3 years running now? 3 sagas running, where he's had a really good year, been shit. Had a really good year, been shit. Had a really good year, been shit. You can't be like that. You cannot be like that. And at this point, I think it's scripted, because there is no way that it will happen. So if it happens, fucking hell. Give the man a bloody Oscar, because he's a brilliant actor. But hopefully it doesn't, because I think at this point it's just not good for him as a person or a player. But then again, I suppose he always wants to be a best player, but I don't know. I think it'd be weird. Hopefully it doesn't, because I think it'd just be a bit freaky. Regardless, Man United finished 6th. 5th, Liverpool. Look, I get that pre-season form is pretty brilliant. I do 100% get that. But no new signings. I think Salah is going to be good, but I think you're going to see a fall off from Salah. I don't think he's going to be the same player he was at any point in his Liverpool career. I'm not saying he's going to be terrible, but he's going to get 18 goal and assists in the league roughly, which is pretty good, but it's not a Salah. It's not what you expect. You expect more from Salah. I think their over reliance on Salah and Van Dijk will be their letdown this year, because I think both of them are going to have worse years. I think Alisson will be fine as he's away from injuries, but I think those two are going to fall off in their sort of seasons, and that is no disrespect to them as players. I just personally believe that's what's going to happen. I think without those players necessarily playing at their best, you're going to see an obvious downfall in their overall ability as a club, and they've lost Klopp. I know that, as I said, their preseason form's been brilliant, but there are a lot of teams that have played really well in the preseason and have just gone on to be kind of average or worse than average, really. So, I mean, like Chelsea in the 23-24 season were actually pretty good in their preseason. They were not great in that league, were they? At least at the start. So, I don't think it's a great way to judge things. I think wait and see with Liverpool. If they have a really good start, maybe they can kick on, but I would be surprised if Liverpool finish any higher than 4th in this Premier League. I don't think they're at the right stage of their sort of point to be at a challenging for a title sort of position. But, Liverpool, best of luck to you, because I would rather, out of the sort of big 3 who've been competing for the to be champions of the league for the past 3 years, no, not past 2 years, you've been the most bearable out of all the 3 as a possibility. So I appreciate that, but I don't think you're going to be in that position this year. 4th is Tottenham. And I've been ranting a lot and rambling along about these positions, but I'm going to make this pretty easy and pretty quick. I am not entirely confident about this. I think the 4th position has about 8 clubs. That's obviously a bit of hyperbole, but still, there's a lot of clubs that could finish there. I just think we're going to have a good year. It's hope more than anything else, because I'm a Spurs fan, but I'm going to back us to finish 4th. I think we will finish 4th. I think Dominic Solanke is a good signing. Archie Gray is a good signing. Mikey Moore's going to be a real player this year. I promise on that. What a player he is, man. I know Invert gets a lot of shit for his opinions on him, but I don't agree he's the same potential as Messi, but I think he will be in the conversation for being the same level as your Mao next year. Come the end of the season, at least. Right? I think I'm going to be correct on that. But I think our youth's coming in, which is really nice. You've got Bergval as well, which I didn't expect him to get as many minutes as he did in the preseason, so I'm happy with that. And if he does well, and if he starts breaking the first team, I'd be more than happy with that. I think our squad's gonna be good. I'm still worried about our attacking threat. I think we're maybe not quite at that level of a sort of pushing anything higher than Champions League, really. And I think our fullback depth is also an issue. I think we need to sign a left foot. We need to sign a left back really yesterday, and we need a new DM. I mean, one of them has been not accused of, has been recorded on camera saying something pretty fucking racist, and then the other one has been recorded inhaling laughing gas on a fucking stream. Like, what was it, 5 days before the fucking season starts? You cannot be doing that shit, man. It's completely disrespectful to not only yourself, the fans, the club, and he will surely be kicked out entirely. I mean, racial abuse, fine, but look, I'll get to this. I get the Bentancur situation being cleared up. I always have. I will now have like a bad sort of feeling towards him, because I think that's just natural. I think that's fair enough. But if it's been cleared up, it's been cleared up. But the Bissouma situation is unacceptable, and there's no excuses to be made at all about that. And I think we will see how it goes. But I would not be surprised if he's not included in the Leicester games lineup. Not lineup, the match squad. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if they're gonna like kick him out of like the preseason train. Well, not preseason anymore, really, but the training videos or any video in general. If he appears in anything to do with Pro Young Club now, I would be very surprised. Like, I know he's had some scandals, but they've all been cleared up. This one is not a clear up at all. I don't think he's guilty of any of his pre scandals, but this one is just awful. It really is very, very silly. It just disappoints me because I like Bissouma as a person, I like him as a player, but it disappoints me in so many levels. Anyway, I know I said I was going to make it clean and concise and short, and it definitely wasn't, so I apologise for that. Moving on, third is Arsenal. Biased a little bit, I don't like Arsenal as a club by any means, but look, I think they will have a worse year. I think you see what happened with Liverpool, right? When they were under those Klopp years where they're competing with Man City, finishing second pretty much every fucking year. It takes a toll on you as a team, as a manager. I mean, look at Mikel Arteta. He just took his age 20 years, about 2 weeks. It takes a lot out of you. And I think this year they haven't really made as many signings as you would not expect. I think they've made sensible signings, but they haven't signed a striker. That will fuck them over. I'm very surprised they haven't gone for Osman. I'm really surprised about that. That would be the perfect signing. I'm glad they fucking haven't. God, I'm happy about that. But I'm surprised they haven't. It really does surprise me a bit. Maybe they'll go in for him, but who knows. Regardless, they will finish third. It's the truth. Maybe they could surprise and win the league. Fuck no. God no. Mikel Arteta is not a Premier League winning manager, let's be honest with ourselves. I think they'll finish third. I think their fans will have a meltdown about it, but it's genuinely fine. It will be fine. Okay. Now, if you can tell what the next team is, well, you have a good way. You've got good memory because you're keeping track. But number 2 is Newcastle. Hear me out. Fuck. Well, I mean that one's pretty obvious. To be fair, too bad about that one. Newcastle will finish second because I think they have an incredibly underrated squad at the moment. I think, like, even look at their transfer business right now. Right, Lloyd Kelly coming in. Left back / centre back, probably going to play left back. So they don't really necessarily have a great squad depth for left back, let alone a good starter. Really, Dan Burn is not great. Matthew Tugg is not great. And they're getting linked to Gay as well, who's a very good player. Gordon's a brilliant winger. He'll be good. Isaac's probably the third best striker in the league. He will be good. We've got players like Joel Linton, Guimaraes. I think they will have a Champions League-esque run, if not higher. I think they need to sign maybe one more player, but I think as well you've got to remember Tonali's coming back now. if he has been keeping up with his training when he's been banned the whole year, and has kept up with his fitness, which he does look like he has, I think he will be a massive improvement to their side. I mean, look at how good he was for them when they were sort of playing well in those first like 10 games before he got banned, and then they sort of fell off instantly. It was pretty obvious because they lost one of their best players. Not necessarily their best player, because Guimaraes is a fucking insanely good player, but the second best. Probably. Maybe could be third, but second best probably is fair enough. And I think Newcastle are going to surprise this year. Without that sort of weight of European football is going to be a massive boost for them as well. And look, I think they're going to do it all right. Maybe they won't, but they're definitely getting slept on, and it wouldn't surprise me if they finish second, and that's why I predicted it. However, I think they will be at a minimum of a Champions League spot. I do not see them finishing any longer than fourth. Number one, obviously, is Man City. I mean, I know it showed for a second by accident, but it's kind of obvious. City are going to finish first. Congratulations. I would rather them win than Arsenal every day of the week, but it's very obvious who's going to win the league this year. End of story. I think there is no team that comes close to challenging them anymore right now. I think you will see maybe Newcastle in a couple of years. Maybe not under Eddie Howe, even though I do think he's a very good manager. But I think Newcastle will be there in a couple of years. But right now, no. Absolutely no. And that's the unfortunate truth about the Premier League right now. Man City are very good. And I don't like saying this because it makes us sound a bit stingy and jealous. And yeah, it is jealous of it. I'm jealous of Man City's success. But at the same time, it would be nice to have another win out of the league that's not Arsenal or Chelsea. I'd be very happy with anyone really winning it, apart from those two, just to be clear. Now, that is Premier League predictions. This probably, I don't know how long this thing is, but it's probably quite long. Could be longer than like 30-40 minutes. So if you've sat through this whole thing, I don't know quite why. I definitely appreciate it, but I'm very surprised. If you have done that, then if you could like the video and subscribe, I'd also really appreciate that. If you skip to the end to see this, well, if you could do the same, I'd appreciate it, but I appreciate you less. I will see you hopefully when I make the next video tomorrow. Also, I apologize if this is coming out when it's like if it was like 3 a.m. because I know in America it's like 3 in the morning something. It's nighttime at least, so I apologize if this is coming out then. I will see you in the next video. Well, leave in the comments if you can or want to what kind of video you want me to do, and I will be happy to do it. Ideas, I need some ideas at some point, alright? So I would appreciate them. Anyway, goodbye.